Okay, guys, so for this next stream, I've got a layout of the whole project I'm working on, why it needs to be done this way, what TLAO is, and everything about creating a movement corpus. And in my notes, I've come down to the problem of operational art. The alt-right had several problems, many more than the America First movement has. But one of the problems it shares with the America First movement is the lack of a corpus. Communism had a corpus. Christianity had a corpus. Islam had a corpus. Even objectivism had a corpus, which is why it has had such staying power despite being poor in just about every other regard from a movement organization standpoint. And that's what I'm working on. Something that can be pointed to once they hear about the movement. Some point, something to be directed to. And that has to be something that deconstructs the oppression arc, and in doing so, a necessary precursor, the deconstruction of the processes that lead to people believing in the oppression arc. I argue for being comprehensive. Why being comprehensive is better than trying to focus on a single issue, like just talking about race and IQ, but not talking about, slavery, segregation, things like that, because you always get sucked into multiple issues, the futility of optics, and why it's better to lean into your advantage, that is, the superiority of the basic position, instead of trying to mitigate your shortcomings, which is stigma, the stigma of heterodoxy. And optics is an attempt to mitigate shortcomings, mitigate the stigma of heterodoxy, instead of leaning into advantage, which is the superiority of the basic position. Streams, of course, are now set on a schedule: Wednesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, and Sunday. We'll see what Twitter becomes. If the censorship there can stop, or if it's all just sound and fury. But for right now, Cozy is basically it. There's a bunch of people shitting on Cozy. Guys, get over it. Cozy is run by a guy who specifically invited me on, is a fan of my content, and who himself has been banned from most major platforms. That's what I mean by reliable. He's reliable in terms of censorship, which is what matters above all else. This is a golden opportunity. Why would you want to pass it up? For what? To have shows on a platform by people who at most tolerate you, right? Like DLive might at most tolerate you, but more likely will eventually ban you for quote-unquote hate speech. If you have a problem with Nick personally, well, okay, what do you think about Susan Wojcicki or the tranny jannies at basically every other platform? Grow up. Nick created something amazing, and you're harping over petty things that in the grand scheme of things simply don't matter and are going to be recognized as silly 5-10 years down the road. If you're not interested in my streams, that's one thing. But if you're staying off because Nick, grow the fuck up, get over yourself, and recognize good organization when it's outright slapping you in the face.